Alrighty, welcome back to the show. I am your co-host, Science.
And I am Conspiracy. And this is Science versus Conspiracy over coffee. So how you doing today?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I'm good. Just wish we could go back in time and try things again.
I would love to go back in time to when we went to Hawaii.
Hawaii was nice.
Hawaii was nice.
Mm-hmm. But was that our choice to go to Hawaii?
Well, of course it was. We booked the tickets and everything. We chose to do that.
But why did we choose to do that?
Why? Because we needed a vacation.
Because we needed a vacation. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But today, that's what we're going to be talking about.
Hawaii?
Time travel.
Oh.
And free will.
Okay.
Because we've talked about time travel in previous episodes, and we've talked about free will in previous episodes.
Yes, we have.
But can there be free will if there's time travel? Can they coexist?
Well, sure.
All right, well, brew some coffee, pull up a chair, and open your mind. This week on Science versus Conspiracy, we will be talking about, can time travel coexist with free will? Over coffee. We'll be right back. So the connection between time travel and free will suggests that traveling through time can limit one's freedom to make decisions. When the characters can change their past, there is a need to put in place some limits to their actions that they can perform. Impossible scenarios would arise otherwise. These impossible scenarios are paradoxes.
Okay, so this is like when we see somebody going back in the past and interacting with their past selves, and it creates a paradox because they can't be interacting with their past selves.
Right. But there's not just one type of paradox. There's 5.
Oh.
Did you know about 5 of them?
No, I did not. Enlighten me.
Probably the most famous one is the grandfather paradox.
Yeah.
So the grandfather paradox is, when you go travel back in time to kill your grandfather. And if you succeed, then who actually killed the grandfather? Because who traveled back through time, and why would that happen?
Because that would mean that you'd never been born.
Exactly.
If your grandfather died.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So that's the first paradox.
Okay.
And there's a very similar one called the Let's Kill Hitler paradox.
Right. Okay.
And we watched a Doctor Who episode under that exact premise. If you were to kill Hitler, what would happen?
Right. Okay.
So it's not like just killing your grandfather when the ramifications are kind of limited to a small group of people. Obviously, Hitler played a huge role in 20th century world events. So if you were to travel back in time and kill Hitler, the same sort of thing with your grandfather, but on a much larger scale.
Can I just acknowledge I'm just in awe, and this goes into our coincidences, and are there such things as coincidences, that you chose to bring up the Let's Kill Hitler paradox on Holocaust Remembrance Day, January 27th.
Is it?
It is. Isn't that wild?
That is wild.
Yeah.
Interesting timing.
Yeah.
Not planned at all.
You're saying there's no such thing as coincidences.
There is no such thing as coincidences. Okay, so we'll come back to the Let's Kill Hitler paradox momentarily. But then there's the predestination paradox.
Okay.
Which states that a predestination paradox occurs when the actions of a person traveling back in time become part of the past events. This may ultimately cause the event he or she is trying to prevent from taking place to take place. Traveling back in time, killing your grandfather would actually become part of the history at that point. So you would actually remember yourself traveling back in time, killing your grandfather.
That's wild.
Yes. Then there is the bootstrap paradox.
Okay.
A bootstrap paradox is a type of paradox in which an object or person or piece of information is sent back in time, resulting in an infinite loop.
Okay.
So one of the examples that I've read a couple of times is everyone's familiar with Star Wars.
Yeah.
George Lucas wrote Star Wars.
Yeah.
So what if George Lucas, and not suggesting that it's time travel or anything, but just the way that this bootstrap paradox works is George Lucas creates Star Wars. After its huge success, he travels back in time to give a younger version of himself the script for Star Wars.
Ah, okay.
So what came first?
Oh,
It's like
okay.
chicken or the egg. Like
Yeah.
there's no definite beginning or end to the Star Wars script.
Okay.
So
Didn't we see something like that on a TV show recently too, where somebody gave somebody?
there's kind of stuff like that in Travelers.
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
yeah. If you guys haven't seen Travelers, you gotta go check that out. The show is amazing. It's too bad it's over.
Too bad it's over, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, so the piece of information or whatever, and they did that in Doctor Who all the time.
Oh well, yeah. But I was thinking something
Yeah.
we'd watched recently, so it was Travelers. Thank you for that.
Yep. Next up is Polchinski's paradox.
Who's that?
He was an American theoretical physicist, Joseph Polchinski. He proposed that a billiard ball enters a wormhole and emerges out the other end just at the same time as it collides with the younger version of itself, stopping it from going into the wormhole in the first place.
Say that again.
Okay.
For the viewer, for the listeners as well as for me.
So you have a ball
Yeah, bowling balls thrown into a wormhole.
thrown into the wormhole, merges at the other end,
Yep.
which is back in time. At the exact same moment, it enters the wormhole, but knocks it out of place, prevents it from entering the wormhole to begin with. So what
Oh.
knocked it out? Yeah, it's a brain.
Yeah, that's
Wibbly
totally a
wobbly.
brain teaser.
Yeah.
Because wouldn't that just push it in? If it's coming at one end and it's launched forward, it would just push it in.
But it doesn't. It moves it and prevents it from actually taking that action.
Okay, well, I'll have to take Polchinski's word for it because I am not a theoretical physicist.
Right. So his paradox is taken seriously by physicists as there is nothing in Einstein's general relativity rule to exclude it.
Okay.
It's a closed time-like curve, a CTS, or tunnel through time. So basically, it's preventing something from an event from happening. Another example that they have is you're traveling on a train and you step off the outside the train, and then you automatically are at the other end of the train, like where you started. Kind of like Mario, the old Mario. You go out the one side and come in the other side of the screen.
Yeah, okay.
That essentially is the Polchinski's paradox.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
They're all kind of similar. Like, they're all kind of similar in the way that, like, it can prevent something from happening by going back in time.
Right, exactly. And this is kind of where I'm going with this, because there was a study a couple of years ago now, and I thought it was more recent, but going back and looking, I think it was 2020.
Oh, that's not too bad. Yeah.
Not too old. But it solves the paradox equation. It solves the paradox problem.
Okay.
Through math. If time travel is actually possible, you can, through this mathematical equation, rule out any sort of paradox, because space-time will end up correcting itself, essentially. So if you were to travel back in time, and for the grandfather paradox, for instance,
Yeah.
and you kill this person, maybe that wasn't actually your grandfather.
Okay.
So maybe your real grandfather died, and your grandmother made up some story with this person being being the grandfather. But so you thinking that this person is your grandfather, you travel back in time, but everything was in motion before
And that's thanks to math?
And that's thanks to math, because through mathematical equations that I can't start to begin to understand, it prevents anything from happening. Like it something always corrects itself to avoid the paradox.
Okay. All right. So now this is bringing to mind another part of Travelers where if the director wants it to happen, it's going to happen anyway. But also Lost too. Okay. I'm I I'm not going to try to pretend to understand the math either. But carry on.
So that brings up the question of free will. If there is time travel, if you are able to travel through time, doesn't that eliminate free will from the equation? Because if time and if there's no paradoxes, then things have to have been put in motion to get to a certain point. So those decisions, those events, those things that happened would have already happened by the time you're in the so-called now.
That's a real stumper.
Right, and there's actually a lot of research. People have done a lot of work on this. An American psychologist, Benjamin Libet, he said back in the 1980s that we have no free will because of the electrical impulses that builds up in the person's brain before the thought of doing something actually happens. So it's already predetermined before the thought of actually doing something actually occurs. And he said if you had enough information and enough just like enough information, you could take it back all the way to the very beginning of time and play it out from that moment to the end of time based on these electrical impulses and movements and actions that have already taken place.
Okay, well, I don't know how much I agree with that. Okay, so I do concur that our brains run on electrical impulses. That's scientifically proven.
Mm-hmm.
And all we are is electricity and chemical reactions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's interesting because like Freud thought we were just like Freud's psychoanalytic theory was all based on the energy of the mind and just how we're just different states of energy. But that's to say, so what Libet was saying, I if I understand you correctly, is that the electrical impulses are there before we have the thought.
Yeah, before the person makes the conscious decision to move.
So, okay, so there's different things because we have muscle memory and movement, and that's part of what our executive functioning in the prefrontal cortex and everything does for us is that we don't have to think about walking. You know, if we had to think about walking, we would never get anywhere because it would be such a laborious process to contemplate every single movement as well as breath as well as everything. You know, like we would shut down, right? We'd implode. But I don't know about conscious thought. Like it's conscious for a reason. Obviously our brain is always firing and our neurons are always firing.
But he's suggesting that it's an add-on.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. The actual thought, the conscious decision to make that movement is the add-on. And it's already been in motion before the brain makes the decision to actually move.
But how does he know that movement or that decision to move is not what is truly embedded in that electricity? Like how do you parse it out? You can't parse it out.
But I think that's what he's that's in part what he's trying to say, is that you don't have to think about it because it's already based on evolutionary behavior over millions of years, that things just happen based on, like, the electrical pulse for me to grab my water bottle here is already set in motion.
Yeah, but evolutionarily speaking,
Mm-hmm.
it's different if I have to go to the bathroom and I need to know how to walk to the bathroom versus if I want to eat my chocolate covered almonds. Like, evolution hasn't embedded my thought to have a chocolate covered almond instead of an Oreo.
No, but it's the act of eating, though.
Yes, but we still have free will to choose what that food is. Do we not?
I say no, because why did you want to choose Oreo over chocolate covered almond? Because of previous choices that you've made in the past, that you prefer chocolate Oreos over chocolate almonds at that particular time.
Yeah, but that would mean we would only ever choose the one treat, evolutionarily speaking. Then we would never choose the one that doesn't serve us as well. And like, why would we put some certain things in our salad at one time and certain other vegetables in our salad at another time?
Because of an infinite amount of choices that led you to that one point. Because maybe
Choices,
no,
free will. If you can make a choice, it's free will.
it's the illusion of free will, because it's the illusion of choice. It's if you okay, so at the simplest, you've only ever had chocolate almonds.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're presented with Oreos, you have two choices: that stick with what you know,
Yeah.
or try something new with the Oreos. The way that your body and mind would decide that is what's happened in the past. Did you try something before that you didn't like? And if did that happen, like, every time you try something new, it turns out you don't like it. So when you're presented with this choice, you might not choose the Oreo because you're sticking with something that you like.
So you're saying we're nothing but operant conditioning.
Yes.
But you wouldn't always take the path of least resistance, though. You won't always go for the one that was rewarded as opposed to, punishment.
Yeah, but based on other decisions that you thought you were making, you chose one over the other, and you went one way instead of the other, like the whole sliding doors thing.
Yeah. Sliding van doors.
Yeah. In that scenario, it's irrelevant, and you wouldn't be able to make that choice because you would always choose the one way, because of your life experiences up until that point. And you may think that you're making a choice, but the decision is already made for you. And that's what it keeps everything still exciting. And I read a lot about if there's no free will, then people just are going on acting like why aren't we just like zombies, and just going through life.
Yeah.
If we know what's coming, but
What's
we don't
the
know
answer?
but we don't know what's coming. Our choices may be already determined, but we at this, and I know we talked about how is now defined.
Yeah.
What's now, what's real right now. We don't know what in 2 seconds is going to bring. The universe might know what we have in store, but we don't. So that's where this illusion of free will comes into play. So then, taking it back to time travel, if we were to travel back in time, these decisions have already been made. It's like with the predestination paradox, that your events, your interaction with with the past or the future become part of that event.
So I wonder why the question has even been raised then, because what it sounds like to what it sounds like it may be to conspiracy theorists and to Libet and whatever, is that not only does free will not exist if you go back in time because of this predestination paradox, but free will doesn't exist now anyway. So you're saying there's no such thing as free will.
That's what I'm suggesting, yes.
Do you actually believe that?
I do.
Really? So you don't think you had any choice to marry me?
No.
It was not a shotgun wedding.
No, but this is where everybody gets caught up about, oh, you don't believe in free will, how you don't make these choices.
Yeah.
We don't, because we're making the choices. I'm using the word choice kind of loosely here.
Yeah, because I'm going to harp on that if you don't qualify it.
Like I said, like the events, everything that's come before any particular moment can only go forward in one direction because of what came before it.
I disagree.
And going forward, we think we're making these choices, but they're the only choices that we could possibly have made.
I disagree, because there's no way that an infinite number of possibilities could be known to us already and wired into our brains, because there are things that we have yet to encounter and explore in life. We don't read every piece of news that comes across the news wire. We don't know about all the scientific discoveries that happen every day and have yet to happen. So how can our choices surrounding all these things that we have yet to even encounter be predetermined?
It's like the butterfly effect. The butterfly flaps its wings in Australia, and there's a tornado in the Midwest.
That's a cop-out, though. That doesn't address it scientifically. Like, there's no way that could get encoded. Never mind a butterfly effect. Like, I understand that, and I understand chaos theory and stuff a little bit, too. But, I mean...
Well, it's not encoded in us. It's...
But you're saying it is.
No, I'm saying that if we were to... It's like the Minority Report. and pre-crime.
All of your references are pop culture.
But there's some good examples because...
Yeah, I know. I do it too.
Because with the pre-crime scenario in Minority Report is that based on what came before, they're able to determine that a crime is going to be committed. So if we had a supercomputer, and this kind of ties into the other podcasts about living inside a matrix or a computer simulation.
Yeah.
It all kind of ties together.
Yeah.
But if we had a computer program and a powerful enough computer to reach back 4.9 billion years, at that moment, we would be able to predict the entire existence of this universe based off of the way atoms and particles and all that kind of stuff go flying out. Everything can only happen one way. And that's not to say that I don't believe in parallel universes, because I definitely do. And maybe some of these time travel stories that we've talked about in the past have involved parallel universes instead of actual time travel. They're traveling to different parts of a parallel universe.
Right. That's what you thought about those kids that were eating too much copper.
Yes.
What was that story again?
That was
what were they called? The children of
Woolpit.
And our brains are supercomputers in a sense.
Our brains are supercomputers, but you said we can't predict. It's not encoded, and how are we to predict something that hasn't happened yet across the world, or read a newspaper or something? But the reason why I brought up the butterfly effect is because someone could read something over in India, which could affect somebody else, which could affect somebody else, and so on until you're having coffee at a coffee shop and you bump into somebody at that particular moment, and you could trace it all back to something that happened in India reading a newspaper.
Well, you know,
And all those events that were leading up to it, they could only have happened that one way.
okay, I'm still not completely on board with this.
Okay.
But the interesting thing that just came to mind when you were talking about someone in India reading the newspaper, et cetera, et cetera. If you buy into the Carl Jung philosophy of the collective unconscious, right? Then we do all share thoughts, experiences, memories, and could maybe it's unconscious in us, and maybe that could be encoded. But I mean, we have so many neurons in our brains, nobody really even knows the number, right? So much of our brain still needs to be explored and logged and accessed. So I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's a bit hard for me to make that stretch though, because I do like to believe that I have made my own choices in life.
Well, yeah, everybody does. Everybody wants to make their own choices, feel like they've made their own choices. And in one sense, we have, because we have our own life experiences, and we just don't, it's not, a situation isn't just presented in front of us and there's only one way, one answer to it.
You're saying there is though.
No, and let me just get to that in a second. Like you will only be able to make one choice, but you consider other options, and based on your past experiences is why you decided, and you will only ever be able to decide on one course of action.
So if that were the case, why do we struggle? Why is there anxiety around uncertainty in
Because we don't know
world?
what's coming. Like if we had, going back, if we had a supercomputer and we could plot all this stuff in, we could run the simulation and see.
Yeah, no, I
where
get
we
that
are.
part.
But
But why would we stress about it if we can only ever make one choice in any given situation anyway? Why worry?
why worry? Because there's still consequences to the actions. It's not that we make a choice and that's it. Like if we decide
The consequences. Sorry, now this is all sounding, here's pop culture. This is sounding very Final Destination now. Like there's no way you can avoid your death, for example.
right, because it's been determined, and according to the other paradoxes, that the Polinsky paradox is that it's and the paradox will correct itself, and there's like the loop. You're not going to be able to avoid death. Like in the new Christmas Carol movie.
Oh, Spirited.
Spirited.
The one that we watched. Yeah, Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. That was funny.
Yeah. But the character in that, he had this destination. He had this destiny, and no matter what, it was going to be fulfilled. And it's like watching a movie. No matter what movie it is, you put it in, and the events happen the exact same way. You can fast forward and rewind it, but the events always happen the exact same way.
Because it's recorded and we're in control of it. That's different.
You're right. It is a recording, and we are essentially in charge of controlling the remote backwards and forwards. But I see it as not being any different than our own universe. If we were the videotape and someone else outside of our universe has control over being able to watch the events play out from start to end.
Now, are you suggesting that there is someone else, or just that it's all electrochemical?
Well, it's definitely electrochemical, but I'm not ruling out the possibility of some sort of beings that live outside of our visual spectrum or out of our time, in operating at a higher level or different, vibrating at a different universe frequency, whatever that is. That I'm not sure about. But what I do believe is that everything, like the videotape, is predetermined.
Okay.
And we can only make those choices in air quotes, based off of everything that's come before us, and we're only going to make that choice.
I have a question,
Mm-hmm.
because you said we were going to go back to the let's kill Hitler paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if we've kind of done that in what you wanted to talk about, or if you still wanted to come back to it. But it pertains to that. How do the 5 different paradoxes
Mm-hmm.
complement or rule each other out? And then, still having considered all of this and what you said about all of the electrochemical and every choice and everything is predetermined,
Mm-hmm.
how do you reconcile that with the math that would permit us to not have these paradoxes?
Okay, so for instance, going back to the let's kill Hitler thing, some of these paradoxes talk about, we know it as like killing Hitler, but maybe that wasn't Hitler.
No, I get that.
Yeah. So the universe is always going to, in these paradox theories, the universe is going to work itself out. And that ties into being able to what's predetermined and what's not predetermined. Everything's predetermined. So going back in time and killing Hitler would mean that maybe that wasn't the Hitler, and someone took over Hitler's role and went on being Hitler, like Paul McCartney.
That still doesn't answer about how all of the paradoxes may or may not work together, and can they coexist, and can this all be reconciled by the math that you were talking about?
Well, apparently by the math, everything in the universe works itself out. So that's how the math reconciles all the paradoxes.
Okay.
And you're right, they are very similar. The kill Hitler is very similar to the grandfather paradox.
Yeah.
Just a slight expansion on scale, but who's to say killing your grandfather, the grandfather's great 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 grandson or daughter doesn't achieve warp travel or something like that down the road, and by killing him you're destroying that whole lineage.
Now, can these coexist with the Polchinski and the bootstrap and predetermination, or is there there's one paradox?
Well, from what I gather, that it would work itself out somehow.
So it doesn't matter which paradox we're talking about.
Right, because
it would still work itself out.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that still doesn't necessarily interfere with the non-existent free will theory either, because if it works itself out, it was always meant to work itself out, no matter how many times you go back in time and do it. It's also like either that wasn't your grandfather, or the other example that they have is you take a gun and you point it at him and you try to shoot him, the gun's going to jam. The universe is going to prevent you from doing it, and then you move your hand to another direction and you fire and it shoots the bullet.
Right.
You move it back to the grandfather and the gun jams again.
Okay.
So there's always going to be something at play that's going to make it not happen the way, like, to create that paradox. So the free will part of that is it's already happened. So by the time, you going back in time because it's already happened and you become part of it. So you become part of the situation. Like another
Right.
example that they have is you travel back in time to prevent your best friend being hit by a car. So you go back in time, but then you could actually be that person that's racing to save them. You might actually be the one who hits him because that person's got to die
Okay.
because it's all because it's already happened, and because it was always meant to happen. The universe is going to find a way to work itself out in a certain particular way to make that happen. Nothing that you can do is you're able to stop it.
Well, this all sounds very depressing because this sounds like we have no choice.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to happen the way that history wants it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing we can ever do about it.
Exactly.
Well, that's really depressing then. It's like, why bother? Why try improving your health? Why bother looking for a mate if you're going to end up just finding them anyway? Why bother actively trying? Why bother going to school? Because you're just going to end up getting the job that you're going to get anyway. Like, why? This removes all motivation from life.
It doesn't though, because you don't know that you're going to get that job. You don't know that you're going to meet that person, and you don't know who it is, or what job you have, or where it is, or when it's going to happen. It's like when you lose your keys, and you're looking all over for it, and then when you stop looking for them, is when you find it. They turn up under the couch cushion or something, or you're dating and you're looking for you're struggling dating because you can't find the person of your dreams, but you stop looking and then all of a sudden they show up. It's the same sort of thing that, yeah, it's going to happen, but you don't know when, and that's still the excitement of being alive. Even though it may be predetermined, we don't know unless you're clairvoyant and all the have some other
And
psychic.
that's another topic.
That's another topic. But even then, it still doesn't interfere with the lack of free will scenario, because it's going to happen no matter what. But we don't know what that scenario is. We can't see 20 years into the future. We can't see 2 seconds into the future. So everything that we do is new, and it's like we're making these choices, but it comes down to, like, what do you want to make we tell our kid to make good decisions. Well, the only way that she can make those good decisions is stuff that we've taught her. And there's no difference between being this and not having free will, because she's going to make a positive, or she's going to make a choice based off of what we've taught her and her own experiences. You're not going to make a phone call to somebody because you don't want to deal with it, because maybe this person you've had a bad experience with, so you want to call them back, so you delay it, but you got to talk to them. You make these quote unquote choices based off of everything that has come before it, and that's the only choice that you're going to make. I know I keep making these pop references, but going back to watching Ozark last night, and the spoilers, if anybody hasn't seen it, turn it off and come back in a few minutes and go watch it, because it's a really great show. But when Ruth said that she was going to kill that guy, you knew she was going to, because no matter what Marty or Wendy or anybody told her, she had it in her mind that she was going to kill him, because he killed her.
But that's motivation. That's not predestined.
But why was she motivated? Because do you think if her father didn't beat her and wasn't in jail and treated her poorly, and her mother died or left, I can't remember, and if Marty didn't do all these things to her, and Wendy, that she may have taken a pass on actually killing him and just like roughed him up.
But here's the thing. Marty says at the very beginning of the show that life is a series of choices, and that comes in over and over again. And the whole premise of the show is based on having choice and weighing all your options. Like, that's what the entire show is about to me. It's not about drugs and money laundering. It's about choice.
Exactly.
And choosing your own destiny.
Right, but the choosing your own destiny comes at the cost of every other decision that was made prior to that, and that's what it's about.
But you just said you can't choose. You can't choose.
You don't.
But you can choose your own destiny.
No, like.
I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one.
Oops.
Because I think we're both going to talk at ourselves until we're blue in the face on this.
Right. And I keep using choice and decisions.
No, I know.
And I don't necessarily, like, we think that we're making these choices and these decisions, but we can but we can only make the choice, that particular movement, that action, that we can only take that particular action. Let's use that phrase. There's only one action that we can take, even though there might be the illusion of several options.
So when Ruth says she's a screw up, it's just because she really is just a screw up and there's no other choice. And that's not the language Ruth uses.
To some degree, yeah. Up until that point, she feels that way because of everything that's come before. Now, if she's had enough of the choices or like the actions that she's taken and what everybody else has done, she can either continue on, and we don't know how it ends yet, or she can have enough and her thought process, she knows her limits, so she would take an action that's the only action that she could take. And it could be she's tired of being put down and walked all over and taken advantage of, or she might continue on because that's all she knows.
No, but you're saying either or, and according to this theory that you're positing, there is no either or. It's only one.
Yeah, and we don't know how it ends yet.
No, but it has nothing to do with Ozark. I'm saying, like, why? Okay, here, let me rephrase. Let me ask another question. Do you think we have the capability for positive human growth and potential?
I do. But it's all based off of what came before. There's only one way that we can grow.
Then if you think that, then that presents, by saying that acknowledges that there's other options.
There are other options that everybody can take, but you're only ever able to take one course of action.
Okay, I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this. Do you have any other readings and stuff that you want to pull up here?
There's a few things, but just where I got some of this research from, I will put it in the show notes so everyone can go take a look and figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, I'd love to know what other people think. It's tough. I understand, like, the electrochemical, like the physiology of it all. But I don't buy into the fact that we are nothing but that.
All right, so let's leave it there for this week. Join us here next week when we will be doing a deep dive into those DNA tests that you can get supposedly to find out about your family tree. What do they do with your DNA once they have it? You'll be surprised. If you haven't checked out our Patreon, members get early access to episodes and exclusive content like research notes and photos.
Yes, so if you haven't become a member yet, go sign up.
Don't forget, being paranoid is smart. We'll see you next time.
And stay curious, but rely on the facts, folks.